Since 2003, this is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
The Sports Source is presented by Junk Be Gone, Pipe Wrench, and the Garza Law Firm.
The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for today's edition of the Sports Source. We've got a lot to cover today, and it's not necessarily what I thought we would be covering when I put the show to bed last night at 12:30. Because at 12:30, the news broke that Mike Matthews was hitting the transfer portal, which means basically your entire receiving corps, except for Chris Brazzell, is hitting the transfer portal. And there was much freaking out and hand-wringing all day yesterday, all week, regarding Nico Iamaleava. So I just said, you know what? First 30 minutes of this show are just going to be a free-for-all on roster management, everything that's going on. We'll talk rumors, we'll talk news, we'll talk the whole thing. Plus, we've got Tennessee basketball. Mark Pancratz has an interesting take that I want to get to you. And also, we're going to do a deep dive into the Tennessee passing offense, comparing Hendon Hooker's first 2 years to Joe Milton's to Nico Iamaleava's. Some interesting stuff in there. Let's start this show. First segment brought to you by our friends at the Garza Law Firm. Personally, I can't believe another year has passed. It literally seems like yesterday we were doing the first show of 2024. They get faster and faster, and our society changes, and technology changes, and everything changes. Except there's one thing in this world that doesn't change, and that's quality legal representation, the peace of mind you get when you turn to Marcos Garza and the Garza Law Firm. They've been helping people in East Tennessee year after year for many years. Marcos is local. Their law firm is local, right here. That's what you need. Marcos Garza and the Garza Law Firm. Learn more about them at garzalaw.com. All right, let's welcome in the first group of panelists. Mark Pancratz is still going to be stepping in a little later, but right here, Will West is from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Chuck Cavaleris, been with us since the very beginning of this show. Josh Ward from 99.1 The Sports Animal, you were the first guy we rotated in. It was always traditionally me, Chuck, Bob, Jimmy, and Mike Strange. And you were the first young buck that we brought in, and now you're just another old geezer like the rest of us. And right there, Bob Hodge, who's been with us from the start. Thanks to all of you for being here. Lots of exits, only one entry to Tennessee's transfer portal so far. Now, the window closed in terms of leaving, you putting your name in the hamper on Saturday, supposedly. At least that's what it's supposed to be. But then Mike Matthews got his portal papers last night at 10:30, but his name might not go until Monday, which begs the question, why do you say the deadline is Saturday if your name might not go out till Monday? I don't know. We have no rules anymore. But the only person Tennessee has grabbed out of the portal so far is Wendell Moe, an offensive lineman from Arizona. They thought they were going to get Josh Thompson, an offensive lineman from Northwestern. Moe's a former three-star athlete. Thompson's a four-star athlete. They thought they were going to get him, but LSU came in at the last minute, outspent them. He's going to Baton Rouge. It happens. But boy, it has been a flurry of activity, especially at the receiver position. Squirrel White kind of surprised some people by hitting the portal. Chaz Nimrod was already in the portal. Nathan Laycock and Nathan Spillman both in the portal. Caleb Webb has already landed at Maryland, and then last night the Mike Matthews thing. And there are people who believe that Matthews is hitting the portal simply because he was afraid Nico might hit the portal, and he didn't want to be stuck because there's been rumors all week, kind of started by Nico's family, which is now coming back and saying, don't relax.
This is starting to sound like the Young and the Restless.
Yeah, so he's not going anywhere, supposedly, but I don't think they're happy about the offensive line and receiver situation. I don't know what quarterback's family would be. So I'm just going to throw it out there and just to open it up. Roster management. We got 30 minutes of half this show to do the free-for-all. Go. What do you want to take? Jump in.
We called it the Wild Wild West, and that was being kind. I mean, this is worse than certainly worse than what I thought it was going to be. Worse than the NIL, the portal, the time frame. Goodness gracious, happened from what, December the 4th until the 28th, and whether it's business days at the end, having to re-recruit your roster. I mean, it's just gotten out of hand, and they got to get some kind of grip on it. Tennessee, I mean, and this is going on everywhere.
There will be no grips.
Well, they got to do something somewhere to get this under control. I mean, teams are going to have roster turnover like Vanderbilt, 50 players.
But there's one thing you can do, and it's the only thing you can do, and that's make them employees and sign contracts. There's nothing else that you can do with this. So we always talk about, well, they need to put a limit on. No one's coming, right?
No.
Like Congress can't do anything to tell you can violate U.S. labor law. A judge isn't going to come in and say you can violate U.S. labor law. So you're going to have to make them employees. That's the only way to slow this down. I think they should have run, not walked, to have gotten this done earlier, because now, like this last offseason, it went parabolic this window with how much money players are getting paid, especially once Duke paid the Tulane quarterback $4 million per year. The Tulane quarterback,
But it's only for 2 years.
Getting them more than Arch Manning. So then now everybody else's salary is going to go up as well, and the only option you have is to make them employees, or it's just going to continue to grow.
It is out of control. Do you want to turn this back to Tennessee at some point? Who wants to handle the Tennessee roster nonsense?
Well, when Josh Heupel was hired and Pruitt was fired, and you had this huge mass exodus of players, you go, well, you see why. This was a one-time thing. And now is it going to become, at Tennessee, and a lot of other schools as well, is this just the way it is now going to be at the University of Tennessee, that you're renting these guys for a season? And as somebody who has season tickets, as somebody who has followed Tennessee football since I was a wee youngin', this is just such a new world. I don't see how a lot of fans are going to be able to hang with what's happening. Because one, I pay for the money to go over there and watch football games, and 3 of them every year stink.
Yeah.
Okay? I paid the money to go over there and watch players that supposedly you watch grow up and you become fans of. No longer is that going to happen. So I wonder, does all this, even though the bottom line is now up here, does what get you to the bottom line start being cut out of, because the game is just so different?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes back to, well, do you get the right players in place? Last year there was the question about the defensive backfield. A bunch of guys hit the portal from Tennessee, and the immediate reaction was, what's going on here? A lot of guys are leaving. Some veterans that still had eligibility, like a Danico Slaughter, and then Jamal McCoy comes in, and Ricky Gibson's a year older. And by the middle part of this past season, fans were excited about what the defensive backfield was. The offense has to get a lot better from what it was this year.
There's nothing to get excited about.
No, but let's keep it on the targeted Tennessee stuff.
Yeah,
for this
yeah,
segment.
yeah.
Then we'll get to the big picture.
So I think the wide receiver reaction immediately is, what's going on? All these guys are hitting the portal, and part of it could be Mike Matthews comes back, and if that's the case, that's part of your answer. But fans right now are wondering, okay, what does that room look like? Because the offense has to get better. You have Nico's father tweeting out what he does.
Well, let's tell people what he did. This week on Instagram, he had been posting things like thanking Josh Heupel and thanking UT for a good run, correct?
Yeah.
I don't follow him on Instagram, so sorry. But then yesterday, when everybody went nuts that he was leaving, and apparently that's why Mike Matthews signed his name, for fear that Nico was going to go, then Nico's father tweets out a thing joking. He said, I found out I got more eligibility. I'm going to be protecting Nico on the offensive line and catches passes for him on the wide receiver core, which sounds like a little bit of reality in there. But then he said, re-effing lax. Relax, with a little extra in the middle. But they're not relaxing because you'd been tweeting, thanks for everything, Vol Nation. I mean, this is just how the game is played.
They used it for leverage,
This
right?
is how
To
the
get
game
more
is
money
played.
out of Tennessee.
Yeah, so
Tennessee gave them more money, and now Nico's going to stay, and that's the way that it goes,
Yes.
because this is the new world that we live in.
So the idea that Nico is, making $8 million man, he's the $8 million man. It's more than that now.
Probably,
Yeah.
And like with
now,
what
my question would be, does he look like?
he hasn't so far.
I mean, I think he could be, and we're
Yeah.
going to show some numbers
Right.
later that
Right.
will show you very much promise. But in terms of, it's all about just potential at this point and your leverage. It's all leverage, which I guess that's business anywhere, but you've never had it in college sports like this, to where there was I know
Right.
David Ubben, our friend David Ubben, loves this, loved it. It was going to be great because the players get theirs. And I said, yeah, that sounds good, but let's see if it doesn't destroy the sport. And you can say, oh, sports ratings are great. The NFL just kicked its tail up and down the field. Those playoff games got destroyed head-to-head with the NFL. But I don't think it is good for the game. Getting back to your point, I think it's bad for the game. But in terms of Tennessee, let's just run through some players real quick for those people tuning in. Nico Iamaleava, not in the portal, gonna stay, got more money. Correct?
Yep, presumably.
Presumably. Mike Matthews put his name in the portal, or he got the papers to put his name in the portal at 10:30. Whether his name's in the portal, we have to wait.
He might not
till
be in
Monday.
there on Monday. We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that. But more than likely, I think the feeling was he's looking for more money and assurances that Nico's going to be here. So Mike Matthews is probably going to be here. Feelings? Now, I'm sorry.
At least-
We're doing
I
a
have
live
no
show, so if he just tweeted, "I'm out," sorry.
At least it doesn't look like he's gone.
Yeah.
But
doesn't
the
that-
door may
I
be
know.
open, or we'll just see.
Yeah,
On
but
that.
it seems
You've
to be like-
reopened negotiations, right?
Right.
All right, so Dylan Sampson, your star from a year ago, he has, not surprisingly, decided to go to the NFL. That makes sense. I don't think anybody's surprised by that.
Not a surprise.
Yes.
James Pierce hasn't made an announcement yet, but that's
He's
Yeah.
gone.
he's
yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
Good riddance. Then you've got Holden Stays, tight end.
Wasn't gonna
who
play,
last
why
year-
not, right?
Well,
Yeah.
last year, oh no, all I heard was we got Holden Stays
Yeah.
from Notre Dame. Oh, wait. And I said, and it ticked people off, I almost said something else, it ticked people off, that I said, yeah, he had a whole 200 yards at Notre Dame last year. He must be spectacular. And people, oh, wait till you see him. And I came out here like a doofus after the NC State game and said, I was wrong. He's really something. They got two tight ends over there. And you never saw him again. So he's gone.
Or he was getting a penalty when he was getting in.
We don't know about Miles Kitselman. He got the Diego Pavia clearance that he can stay an extra year. But
I think Kitselman possibly coming back is an influence to Stays leaving.
Yes.
Yes.
If Davis
Exactly.
is the
You
future,
can read the
Kitselman's
tea
the
leaves.
present.
Yeah.
So where is he going to? When is he going to play?
Boo Carter staying, Christian Harrison, who he split time with, leaving.
So
Anything there? I mean, the Boo Carter
Well,
rumors
Boo
this week were that he wanted to play offense as well as defense, to which I'm not a fan of players dictating terms, but I've seen Tennessee's offense. Put him on offense. I got no problem
But
with it.
he might have been your
snaps
third best
available right now.
receiver.
Give it a
this
shot. Give it a shot, kid.
You know,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, especially now that you don't have receivers, why
Right.
not? Like, I don't love the idea of him
Yeah.
coming back and doing that. I also think there have been 5 guys in my entire life who could play both ways. Champ Bailey, Carl Pickens,
Gordy Lockbaum.
Gordy Lockbaum, but at the lower level. I mean, but is he any of those
Gordy.
guys? Right. That's
I'd
the
say
one
he's
thing I
every bit as
wonder.
good as Gordy Lockbaum.
But is he Champ Bailey? Is he
don't
Charles
care. You don't
Woodson?
need him
Is
to
But here's
be.
the thing, you don't know
Travis
yet.
Hunter?
But see, here's one thing.
Why
that
do I need him to be?
Yeah, you
Can he
mentioned-
catch a pass and take it
Well,
somewhere?
it's not
I'm
like
good with that.
Bailey and Woodson did a ton on the offensive
Well,
side.
exactly.
Right?
Charles Woodson caught a couple of deep balls.
Yeah, yeah.
There's one
Use him
thing
like
you
that.
mentioned, Will. If you promise a kid in the recruiting process,
Yes.
that you're going to have the chance to play both,
And Tennessee
and
did.
you get here and you don't see that opportunity present itself, and you feel like I can help this team. I mean, I believe I'm better than some of these guys
Do
that
you
are
think
out there on
that's it,
offense.
or do you think it's I'm going to drive up my NFL profile
Well,
the same
I
way
mean,
Travis?
whatever.
Or I
don't
want
know
to play
Boo Carter
both
from
ways.
Adam, but
People are offering me piles of dough
To go somewhere
If you
else.
want me to stay here, you're going to have to acquiesce to
I,
something.
give me
I
the
don't
chance,
think
yeah.
I,
Well,
I don't
I mean,
think
I
there
think
are
it's part
very
of it.
I don't think there are very many players over there who are right now saying, I want to do this for the good of my team.
No, I'm just
I think
saying,
most of them
as
are
an
saying-
athlete, you know you're good enough
Yeah.
to be out there, and you're
Totally
better than what
different
they're
thing.
putting on the field.
Travis Hunter
You
was
feel
the
that way.
I think
Travis
they're
Hunter
looking
was
at
the
it saying
number
it'll
one player
increase my value.
in the recruiting class. Boo Carter was 119. Right, like those other guys were 5-star elite athletes. Boo Carter
But I don't get
was
you-
a 4-star from
What's
Cleveland.
your argument, Will?
That's irrelevant.
who do you see out there that looks good on the
I
receiving
would,
corps?
I would go find someone who plays receiver, and I would have them play
they don't-
receiver.
Well,
from
Well,
the
let's
transfer.
talk about scholarship
You've
limits
had-
next.
You've had 3 years to go find guys to play receiver, and you obviously are not very good at it. You got a guy that looks like a premium athlete. He may not be Charles Woodson. He may not be Champ Bailey, but he's probably better than
Is what
Squirrel
you got.
White.
Yes.
I don't believe there's a chance
Oh.
in Hades he's better than Squirrel White at receiver right now. Because Squirrel White
Can he
plays
catch the
receiver.
ball?
So, well,
That would be a start.
and also, is he healthy? Right? That's the other thing.
Okay.
Squirrel White's not healthy, but Squirrel White caught 50 balls 2 years ago.
Yep.
Right? So, I just don't
Caught 52.
see a 4-star, 5'11", 180-pound guy catching,
Okay, we're looking at what do you look?
catching 50 balls.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't see. Okay, if he's saying I want to be a full-time both-way player, that's one thing. If he's saying give me some snaps on offense,
Give him
and
15
I'm going
a
to show
game.
you.
Yeah.
and that's fair.
Give him
yeah,
15
that's
a
fair.
game.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
give him
saying.
5 a game. That's
Yeah, it's too
enough.
big.
Right.
But if you can get the ball in his hands 2 to 3 times, and he has the wiggle and go to make a play, then I think it ends
Well,
up
did you
holding.
not see that on some of the punt returns?
Okay, stop. Stop. Need to get a break. All right, when we come back, well, this is lively. Let's talk about why Tennessee isn't just going to go out and grab a bunch of receivers. There are still scholarship limits over there. I remember when they kept delaying and kept delaying and kept delaying with the Jeremy Pruitt thing, and we're waiting on a verdict and waiting on a verdict. Well, you're still paying for it because it waited and waited and waited, and now you've still got scholarship limits thanks to Jeremy Pruitt. And we're going to talk about the receiving core. You know, there's tons of guys in the portal. Are you worried about it because, well, a lot of good players you're losing? Or are you just worried about it because there's no receivers left? I think it's probably more that latter than the former. We'll come back and discuss. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Masonry, roofing supplies, Nudura concrete forms, cultured stone, any kind of building material you need from hundreds of the top vendors in the nation. That's what A.G. Hines Company will provide for you. More than 100 years of experience with pride of 4 generations of the Hines family behind it. aghines.com is where you can learn more. All right, let's take a look at our poll question for today. Here it is. How are you feeling about Tennessee's football program? Great, playoffs. Or, better than this time last year. Or, portal help, please. Or, worried about 2025. Before yesterday's insanity online, I don't think worried about 2025 would have been the leader. I think yesterday and all the hubbub drove that to the top. Okay. I want to mention the scholarship things as we were going to break. Tennessee has, and credit to Adam Sparks, the Sentinel, for putting this out there, they have lost 27 players that we know of at this point. It could be 28 with Mike Matthews if his name appears in the portal or not, which we'll find out Monday. In terms of people taking those spots, they signed 25 in their signing class. So you got 25 freshmen coming in, so that leaves you with 3. You got Wendell Moe from Arizona, that leaves you with 2. So in terms of going out and grabbing 2 receivers, so that's all you can grab. Yeah. You tried to get another offensive lineman. Now, you can go over that, but you're going to have to start chucking people overboard and saying, yeah, we really don't need you, and I don't think anybody likes that. So thoughts on just the numbers crunch. Do you see that being a problem? Or in this age of wild, wild west, Josh, they can figure it out.
Yeah, I've always had a difficult time keeping up with the numbers, and I've always leaned toward the numbers will work themselves out how the program needs them to. And now in this age, I lean more that way, that I don't know exactly how the numbers are going to work out, but if they need a player gone or they need a player in, they're going to make sure they have the numbers to make that happen. So right now it looks a lot tighter than I'm guessing it will be if they have more players that they need to bring in.
But if right now it looks tighter, and it does look like it's pretty tight, does that keep you from aggressively going after guys that are available right now, going to be available, or do you have to kind of hang back before you call your third string guard and say, hey, what were you going to do after you got done at UT, because it's a great time to start working on your future? So I think it is a problem, and I don't have confidence that it'll work itself out. Because right now your receiver room is down to 2 guys, 3 if you put Boo Carter in there. Hey, you know, we had a little discussion about that.
Stick a pin in the Boo Carter thing, because I got a stat later that'll be all for Boo Carter.
So are you going to be able to even make enough room to get a receiver room with enough depth that it makes a difference? So I am worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, and how can you not be worried? It's a receiver room, offensive line, right? I mean, and you really need both.
Yep.
Especially to me, I think you need to turn your focus back on the offensive line. You've got one, and he looks like he could be a guard. Looks like he could help you there.
I've never seen Wendell Moe. Nobody has.
Right.
All these people who are celebrating Wendell Moe, they've never seen him play one play of football in their lives.
That's the only people who have seen
So
him
that's
play.
what I'm saying. I've seen him 2 or 3 times. But what I'm saying is that if it's not a numbers crunch now, it's going to be pretty soon.
Yeah.
All right.
I would just say, you know, when Josh was mentioning the secondary from last year, I looked at it and said, you know, Tennessee's in trouble from a wide receiver standpoint, but now I'm looking at it saying, maybe they'll figure it out. And don't they always figure out how to get these roster spots right? And so last year, I was one that said, panic about that secondary, because if those dudes left and these are the guys backing them up, they're going to be worse. Now I'm looking at the wide receiver room, and I do think maybe it was mismanaged because you thought you had Mike Matthews and you had these guys, and you had Brazel and you had
Braylon
Squirrel.
Staley
and,
is supposed to be the future.
Yeah. So you thought maybe you had guys, but we watched them kind of, I don't want to say blow it, but we watched it get them put themselves in a deficit in the secondary last year, and they did a pretty darn good job putting that together. So I think they'll do a pretty good job putting it together this year as wide receiver corps.
All right, let's come back. When we come back in the next segment, I'm just going to fire straightforward questions that you guys will handle it that way. Come on back on the Sports Source. We got much more to talk about on this roster stuff. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Uncle Jim's River Cove Campground. If you are wanting to take your family on a camping adventure they'll never forget, or an RV excursion they'll never forget, book a spot now at Uncle Jim's River Cove Campground. Smoky Mountain vistas, I love the word vistas, sights along the west prong of the Little Pigeon River. I love the word prong. Vistas and prong. Premium RV hookups and endless list of amenities. They got it all. Visit the website rivercovecampground.com today to learn more. All right, I'm going to hit you guys with some quickie questions because we got Mark Pancratz and basketball to get to. Then a little later, we're going to give you some numbers comparing Tennessee's pass game over the last 4 years. That will surprise you. It surprised me, some of the numbers. All right, Will, I want to start with you. The receiving corps, I hit this one as we were ending that first segment. People are all freaked out because you've got like 6 guys now in the portal from the receiving corps. But is the freaking out more about we don't have anybody left? Or is it more about, oh my gosh, we've lost all these great guys? Because I look at it, I think you're losing a lot of just another guys.
I think outside of Mike Matthews, I think he's a 5-star guy as a freshman.
Who they used last year like he was just another guy.
They did. And so part of it, because I think Squirrel White can be good, I don't know that the way Tennessee uses him is probably in his best interest. But otherwise, I think it's just the numbers. And also a lot of these guys were followed and you boomed them on social media and the recruiting rankings and on message boards. So really it's about hype that they've never lived up to for the most part with a lot of the names. But I think Mike Matthews is there's a reason he's a 5-star guy and every other school wanted him. You don't want to lose that guy. But everybody else, yeah, it's just the numbers.
I'll give Squirrel White credit on the fact that he did continue to play hurt. He constantly played hurt. That needs to be noted by me. Chuck, the receivers coach, Kelsey Pope,
Yes.
who was promoted into that position a few years ago, he's now catching all kind of heat because, one, the receivers were not great last year, and I got, again, numbers on that too that'll make your eyes bleed. But the receivers were not great last year. The passing game has gone downhill the last 2 years.
True.
And now he's got his entire receiving corps, except for Chris Brazel, in the portal. Is he taking too much heat or no?
No, I don't think it is. I think it goes with territory, doesn't it? Who have you developed? Who have you got on the field? Who can you say, boy, that guy from the first game to the last game, he has really made a lot of progress. And that, we go back, look at it, what was the most underperforming position group on your football team? Name me somebody more underperforming than your wide receivers.
It's a good one. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good one, Chuck. You can leave now.
I didn't even pat myself on the back.
That's the George Costanza, leaving behind Josh, the Kelsey Pope heat. Mm-hmm. Chuck says it goes to the territory. I think that's a great answer. Your thoughts on how much blame he's getting, how much blame he should be getting?
Well, I think it's very fair to wonder why hasn't there been more development and production from guys that Tennessee has signed out of high school and also that have come in the portal and been expected to make a bigger impact than what we've seen. From the high school ranks, I think Squirrel is probably the only guy that's done anything of note. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting here this segment wondering, well, how big of a loss is it? So Mike Matthews would be the guy that fans are pointing to. Okay, now's the chance. You really have to get something out of this guy because he has some level of talent where he should be able to make an impact in the SEC. But I think criticism of the wide receivers coach is fair because the production hasn't been close to what Tennessee's needed.
And I'll take it. I'll give him a little cover in that he was promoted. Mm-hmm. I'll blame his boss. If the issue is with the wide receiver coach, maybe go out and get a wide receiver coach. Josh Heupel, if you notice, on defense last year, they went out and got a coach. On offense, when he's had a slot, he's promoted from within. Offense coordinator, receivers coach. I'm a big Josh Heupel fan. That when I see people who do that, it seems like they have a comfort level. I do my offense. I don't need somebody bringing in new ideas. I don't need somebody challenging me. That may be totally the 180-degree opposite of what's going on. But I just read the tea leaves, and when I see someone who never goes out and hires somebody for his side of the ball, makes me wonder how much he likes to have anybody that questions the way he's doing things. So I don't, is part of it on Pope? Absolutely. It's his deal. Mm-hmm. But who put him in charge of it? If it turns out that, yeah, this is him, well, who hired him? Bob Hodge, let me ask you. Fans yesterday freaking out on the message boards, which to me, it's kind of entertaining to read. But just people going crazy on this thing. They're like, is there to be no stability? It's like, no, there's not. No. I mean, that's the problem. Everybody wanted this. Now you got it. And if you look at it, if you're sitting there thinking, well, Tennessee, you can't take a step backwards. Florida State was undefeated. They lost everybody. They had to rebuild their whole team in the portal. They won 2 games this year.
Didn't work.
So I think you're going to see more of that. Michigan wins the national title. Michigan wins 7 games. I think this is going to be the era of instability due to all the things we've talked about, NIL and transfer portal. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so, because if you look at what's happened in the transfer portal so far, I think in the SEC, Auburn, they're calling Auburn the big winner in the SEC. Auburn last year was a very mediocre football team. And I think Texas Tech has had a big couple of weeks in the portal too. Who's Texas Tech? So will you be shocked next year if those 2 teams don't improve? And Tennessee, who's kind of caught right now lacking in the portal with too many guys going and not enough coming. So I think it will change year to year. And you're also just caught, as Justin Hamilton said 2 years ago, you're always re-recruiting your own team.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how many guys, you sign a 3-star receiver, you develop him in 2 years, and holy cow, we got lightning in a bottle, and it turns out he's going to be a first-round draft pick, and you're paying him $50,000 a year, and now somebody comes and say, we'll give you 10 times that. So all of this stuff coming into play, I think instability is where we're at, and it's going to stay that way. And I think eventually it'll catch up with the Georgias, Ohio States, and the Alabamas, the teams that everybody thinks is here.
It already caught Florida State. That would be
Yes.
a blue blood kind. They're not Ohio State, Georgia, or Alabama, but they're blue bloody. And you could make a case that Alabama got caught up. When's the last time you saw Alabama go to Vanderbilt and lose? So you can make a case that it's catching up to just about everybody.
And that's exactly what Clark Lee said at Vanderbilt. Tired of recruiting players, losing them to other schools when we can go in the portal and build our roster that way.
And now he's got a quarterback who has come out and said, I'll stay if all the other people stay in place. So, I mean, it used to be the kids have no power. Now the kids have all the power.
The kids got it all.
They got all the power. So the idea that we're talking about they promised or they didn't promise Boo Carter he could play some of both ways. There used to be a day when you could lie to kids left and right and say, oh, we'll let you play there. You get them on campus, you don't do it. Now, good luck promising stuff because they can just say, portal.
Your perfect example was
Randall Cobb.
Randall Cobb goes to Kentucky, promised he can play quarterback. He goes up there, takes 2 snaps in practice, and says, "Oh, by the way, let's see if you're a receiver."
Yeah.
Would he have stayed? Pretty well, but now does that mean portal?
It's also not the kid often saying, "Hey, you." It's the agent calling,
Yes.
or a parent,
Or a father.
Parents.
Who might appear on Instagram.
Representation. It's representation calling on behalf.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. When we come back, does Tennessee have enough depth? Are they using enough in their rotation to make a good tournament run this year? We'll take a look at some numbers that Mark Pankratz. Whenever I use numbers, you always hear from the people, stat geek, coaches don't follow that stuff. Yeah, they do. That's why every pro team, every college team now has an analytics department. Analytics means stats. And Mark Pankratz asked for some stats, and I grabbed my calculator, and we got them. He's going to break them down next. Come on back on the Sports Source. That was for your guy on Monday.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Whether it's an infestation, carpenter bees, termites, bed bugs, or a seasonal nuisance, mosquitoes, stink bugs, Southeast Termite and Pest Control has 50 years of experience to combat it. And in terms of protecting your home from critters and from humidity, they also do crawl space encapsulation work. Check out southeasttermite.com to learn more. All right. I want to remind you of the poll here before I introduce Mr. Pankratz. There we go. How are you feeling about Tennessee's football program? It doesn't look like we've calmed anyone's fears. It appears now that people are still saying, worried about 2025. Take out your phone, your smartphone, use the QR code there under the Hearthside Bank logo. Play along with us. Let us know what you think. Come on. You don't need to freak out that much, do you? I always try and play devil's advocate. If it's too negative, I try and get the positive. So let's see if we can get somebody to say, I feel great. We just got to the playoffs. Come on. Give us a shot. Mark Pancratz, you're always, well, you're not always positive, but you're honest. We appreciate you being
all
here.
this NIL talk y'all we're dealing with, I'm so thankful to be with y'all as opposed to dealing with
don't
agents
miss-
and parents. And your kid hasn't taken a snap, but you want more money. Like,
Have
what
you
are we
ever
talking
been
about?
happier to that you decided I'm getting out of the basketball coaching biz? I know you miss the actual basketball, but you have to be thrilled you got out before all this crap started.
Yeah, I mean, really for my wife and my kids, but yeah, because of the dynamics, it's no longer you're no longer a basketball coach. You know, there's people that, I mean, you're dealing with agents, and like Josh said on the last one, agents, parents, kids, re-recruiting the players. Like, there's so much little time for actually preparation for the game, and so much of this other stuff that it takes away the fun of some of the coaching pieces.
Well, that rolls right into what we're going to talk about here. I want to talk about the team's rotation, but that kind of gets into roster. Now, this is a guy in Cameron Carr who was going to be out this year anyway. He was hurt, so he wasn't going to play. But he just decides he's gone. Yeah. And Rick Barnes doesn't really provide much cover for him. When after the post game against MTSU, they're talking to him, what's the deal? He's like, I don't know. He just left. Which kind of reminiscent of what happened with Jonas Adu last year. Kind of a surprise that he just left. You got any insights on the Cameron Carr, Rick Barnes thing there?
Well, I think if you look at the history and then just what's going around the country is these guys come back. One, they see, which we'll talk about in the segment, of the lack of depth, and there's some need for them, and people talk about how great Cameron could be, because I think Cameron could be a good player. Well, now you're coming back, and these parents and other folks are asking for more money. I mean, same thing with Jonas. Jonas had a certain dollar amount that he wanted, and Barnes and staff were willing to give a certain amount. It didn't meet what he was going to get at other places like Arkansas, so he bounced. The fact that a kid can leave a number one team in the country that has proven to mold these guys, not just as basketball players. I mean, look at the guys that he's putting in the NBA.
Yep.
It's not like these guys are freak athletes. I mean, you look at Grant Williams. I mean, he's an undersized post player that's now playing a 5, 6, 7 year career in the NBA.
Made millions.
He's proven to get guys better. And the fact that you're going to walk away from it and with an opportunity to play, oh, by the way, look at who's leaving after this year. Mashak's gone, Ziegler's gone, Igor's gone. All these guys are gone. Cam, come here, get better this year, and now it potentially could be your team.
Yep.
And these guys walk away. And I think the other part about the NIL, they're so focused on money right now that they miss out on a 4-year career at the University of Tennessee. You can come back to this town whenever your playing career is done, and you can be a staple in this community that will support your business, support your career, and you'll make more money in the future doing. I mean, look at what I'm doing. I mean, I was there coaching.
If I could find a former Vol basketball player, I would knock you out of here so quickly. I would get rid of you. I'd put Cam Carr right there.
That's right.
But
you're right, though. You can come back.
Isn't
and
it
have
also how this is happening? That Cam Carr, did he say, Coach, I've got some things going on. Can we talk about this? I think I'm going to do X, as opposed to just up and leaving and not having the courtesy, or your teammates are counting on you during this season to at least tell somebody, this is what's going on in my mind.
Okay. I got to get one more thing here. We went long there. I'll get you guys to answer in on this next segment. Hang on. All right.
Okay.
Let's go to the numbers quick. We've got no. You're fine. Let's go to these numbers. I want to show you. Mark asked me to dig these up. We were talking about is Tennessee's rotation deep enough. He said, give me a look at last year's Elite Eight. So what I did was I went and I found the bench minutes for all the Elite Eight last year, and that includes Tennessee, and then Tennessee this year. And you see Tennessee's playing fewer bench minutes than any of those teams last year. You see where they ranked. There's only like 360 teams in the country, and you are at 330-something down there. So you are really low in terms of the amount of minutes you're giving to your bench. Ken Pomeroy, the guru of basketball stats, he does the thing where he ranks players. If they play more than 13% of all possessions, they're a role player of some sort. Below that, you're just called nearly invisible. Jemai Mashak is not getting 13% of possessions right now, which I think is a little bit of a surprise coming into the season, that he's below 13%, so he's nearly invisible, which means you've only got 7 guys in your rotation if you break it off like that. Whereas, see, last year, 8, 9, 11. Mark, Chuck, and Will, does Tennessee have a deep enough rotation to make a good long tournament run this year, based on what you just saw?
I say no because Zakai Ziegler, the load that he has to take on both ends, offensively and defensively with a lack of a backup. If you talk Meshack or Gainey's the backup, I just think it's going to be hard for him to carry that. Look at the minutes that they're playing, and your average win total is by like 20-something odd points a game. Like, you're blowing a lot of teams out, and they're still logging a lot of minutes.
Right. That was my question like a week or so ago. How can you keep on doing this with Zakai as hard as he plays on defense? The thing I wonder about, John, is your post players. I don't think when you get into like the Auburns and some of these other teams, you've got the physicality. You might have it out there at the start, but I don't think you're going to have it for the whole game. I think that's going to be what really is going to be the big obstacle.
We've seen teams with 6-man rotations make runs in the tournament, right? But you would probably say no, right? I would just looking at this now.
You can't drive a stake through it and say
No.
you never have.
But
the odds are.
Yeah, but it's far more likely that you don't have a deep enough rotation, especially unless you give Meshack more minutes, than 7 guys is going to be able to get it done. Through the SEC, as tough and as deep as the SEC is right now, and then through the NCAA tournament, that's tough. Sometimes you can just get hot, right? Auburn got hot that one year. They made the Final Four. Sometimes you just start knocking things down. I think it would take something like that because Tennessee isn't built for what you want for the tournament.
Or you get the perfect draw
Yes.
in the bracket. So it's possible.
It's possible, but
when you look at it, we've talked about this in past years. That didn't happen last year, but we've talked about in past years that Rick Barnes' teams tend to fade late, and people blame it on, well, he doesn't know how to coach anymore. It has to. You look at the numbers. He wears his guys out. That's what he does. I mean, his teams play a lot more minutes than some other teams out there, and it usually comes back to haunt him, in my opinion.
And you look at the strength of the SEC now, right? It's like SEC football. You got 11 of the 17 SEC games are against ranked opponents. Like, you're going into dogfights, and you're the number 1 team in the country right now. People are coming at you. It's going to be it's going to wear on your body physically and mentally.
Let's talk about how it's wearing on Rick Barnes. I want to come back. We were going to do something at the end of this show. It's the last show of the year. I was going to do a big prediction segment and let everybody do a bold statement, bold prediction. Mine was going to be, I think Rick Barnes will hang it up. The Cam Carr thing, Jonas Adu last year, he's proven me wrong. He keeps going, and he's doing a great job, and I hope he doesn't retire. But I was going to say that, and I thought, it'll just be taking his clickbait hot take. And then Mark and I had a conversation this week, so it's back in the show as a discussion point. Rick Barnes' future next. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Just a reminder that these guys are closed until January 6th for their holiday break. I always love the fact that they give their people a big chunk of time off so they can spend their time with their families at the holidays. But when they reopen on the 6th, they have a large selection of new product from all their many, many manufacturers waiting right there for you at Highway 411 North in Madisonville. No better place to buy a boat. All right, back with Mark Pancraft, Josh Ward, Will West. As I said, I was going to do the prediction because the Adu thing, the way that Barnes handled it and just said, I don't know, he just left. And then the same thing with Cameron Carr. I'm like, he's 70. I'm surprised he's gone this long, and he's doing it better than ever. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's done for Tennessee. I've said for years he's the best coach they've ever had. I don't think there's even an argument at this point he's the best coach they've ever had. That said, I do wonder about his longevity. Him and Tom Izzo both, 2 guys who've had great success. You look around, how many coaches just said, I've had enough, I'm out. Mark, we were talking this week, and you said, I wonder about Rick Barnes' future. So I'm going to ask you, thoughts on, I know you were looking at the roster, Jim Larinaga.
Yeah.
Give people here your thoughts. What were you telling me?
I know that as a coach, you like the challenge, you want to end on a high note, and hopefully we can make a long run and you can ride off in the sunset. But you got to look at the age piece of it. His coaching staff is really good, but at what point are they going to say, Gainey, at what point is he going to say, I'm going to go be a head coach somewhere? And then you just look at the NIL stuff that y'all have already talked about. And the big piece that I look at is Zakai Ziegler, Meshack. I mean, all the seniors that are leaving.
Ziegler, Milicic, Gainey, Meshack, Lanier and Dubai were both fifth-year guys. So I guess all that I don't argue about eligibility anymore because Lord knows who's going. No, he's got a Spanish influenza year still with him. He can go 8 years. But I do wonder about all these guys. That's a lot to replace for a guy who's 70 years old and has already been, done it all.
Yeah. I just think that it's going to happen sooner or later. Maybe it happens after the end of this year. If they don't have the year that they're on track to have and they go out early, that competitiveness comes in. But I just look at having to rebuild an entire roster is a big challenge in this climate that they're dealing with. And they've struck gold 2 years in a row. You got to wonder, can you keep getting the Chaz Laniers and the Dalton Connects type of players to have the success that doesn't often happen when they do hit the portal?
You got to wonder if he's one of these guys who simply can't. Again, I'm not trying to push him out the door. It'd be a bad thing for Tennessee when he does walk away. But you do wonder if he's one of these guys, well, like Belichick. It's like, they're not going to give me an NFL job. I'll go coach college for the first time in my life. Some guys, players, coaches, it's all they know.
Yep.
You know, I was surprised Nick Saban said, I'm out. I thought he would coach till he was in a casket. You guys, your thoughts on Rick Barnes? The end is coming at some point. Do you think we're getting there, or Mark and I are kind of jumping the gun on this a little?
Well, it's funny because the Belichick to North Carolina thing actually recently made me think I can't rule out anything when it comes to talk of what a coach might do one way or the other. So you can tell me Rick will coach for a few more years. I'd say, okay, because Belichick's jumping into it. But I've personally thought, okay, could it line up with Zakai Ziegler? Because they have such a special connection. Zakai's so important with what they've done culturally, I think, with the program. Jemai Meshach, too, in the last couple of years. And we believe this is it for Zakai from an eligibility standpoint. So if this is it, nobody should be surprised. I know Tennessee would love Rick to be the guy as long as possible.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, but I also don't know that he knows right now if he wants to retire. Now, one thing that is,
like Larinaga, did he think 2 months ago, I'm out in the middle of the season?
Well, also, if Larinaga has a winning record right now, is Larinaga still there? You know what I mean?
So, the guy was in the, Final Four 2 years ago?
Yeah, and 8 of those players came from the NIL transfer portal thing with their NIL collective, and then it's like, oh, well, this is just too much. Well, it got you to a Final Four, pal. Like, God love you.
Yeah, but that's a great example, though. He just had the heights of it, and he's still sick of it.
Yeah. Now he's dealing with but while he's dealing with the lows,
you got the up one year, you get the down. How long until Rick Barnes has one of those where you bring in a bunch of guys and the chemistry doesn't mesh,
right?
And they're no longer in it to. I mean, he builds on culture. He builds a program.
Yeah.
If he starts having to build from scratch year in and year out, where's the culture part of that?
Well, there's no program; it's a team. It's what Tom Brady said to Stephen A. Smith at Fanatics Fest. No longer, you're not a program; you're a team. And that's what can happen. I don't know that he will go. One thing that's interesting when you guys brought that up, though, when we were talking off the air, Rick Barnes has been doing a lot of public speaking events, especially faith-based things, just this past off season. That didn't, and people who would normally had said, just came up to me and said, we had a chance to get Rick Barnes to speak at this thing this year. That's pretty awesome. We have, and they didn't have those opportunities at churches and things like that in the past and at conferences. So maybe he's setting up for himself like Saban did the TV thing. This is, whether it's this year or another year, this is the thing I'm going to do afterwards, is maybe do a more faith-based speaking and things like that.
You can pull out the Rolodex, and there's not one guy that is left that is near his age that has said, I wish I would have stayed.
Yeah.
I mean, you call those guys, and they're all making, maybe not as much money, but they're making a good living on TV, and you're not doing what they're having to do to build the roster and deal with it all.
And how much money has Rick Barnes already made? I don't think I know everybody wants to continue to make $10 million a year, but or $5 million a year in his case.
But I think these coaches, especially Barnes, they're at a stage of life where it's about impact. Yeah. It's not even about wins and losses. And if you have a guy in your program for 6 to 8 months, how much impact are you really making in a kid's life? Which that's what coaching used to be, and that's what Barnes loves about it. These guys now that are truly in it for impact, not notoriety, that's why I think they'll start to lean to get out, because you can't have that impact.
And that's kind of what I was getting at with the culture thing. It's like he builds it one way, and if that one way goes away to where he can have the impact on the kid, to where it's not just a team. All right, this is our team for this year. Next year we'll have a completely new team from scratch. Why would he want to continue? But look, don't start putting it on social media.
We hope you stay, Rick.
Yeah, Sports Source tried to drive him away. No. Best thing ever happened to Tennessee basketball, period, without question, in my opinion. So, no, hope he coaches for a long, long time. When we come back, let's look ahead to another guy who hasn't walked away and has had opportunity. Could have just said, after Kentucky, I'm just going to retire. John Calipari is coming back with Arkansas and with Jonas Adu. Let's discuss. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Daniel and his team want to wish all of you a happy new year, and they want you to know that no matter what comes your way in 2025, they've got your roof and your home covered and protected. Visit danielhoodroofing.com today. We are way over, but let's take a look at the poll results first of all, and I'm guessing it's still going to say worried about, that's the winner. All right, but it did shift a little, didn't it? It seems like it got a little Portal help, please, I think, grab some. So you didn't get completely positive, maybe a little more positive. Thank you very much for playing. All right. Tennessee has a New Year's Eve afternoon game with Norfolk State. 3 o'clock New Year's Eve. Okay, great. But New Look, Arkansas, 10-2, ranked number 23 in the country, will visit Food City Center next Saturday. That means John Calipari back with yet another program. He's come in with Memphis. He's come in with Kentucky. Now he's coming in with Arkansas. Oh, and he'll have Jonas Adu with him. I'm sure nobody's going to boo that guy. Adu now, they've started playing him more. His numbers are down from what he did at UT last year. But over the last 4 games, he's back minutes-wise to what he was at Tennessee, playing about the same, and his numbers are almost identical. It's about 11, 12 points a game and about 7 rebounds a game his last 4 games. So he's rounding into shape, it seems. Mark, thoughts very quickly on Tennessee versus Arkansas, Calipari, Adu.
I like the matchup because I like our toughness and our defensive ability to guard. They've got some really good guards in Arkansas. Adu's scoring a little bit different. He had to score more back to the basket, some jump shot type stuff. Maybe that was because of some of the ways he liked to score, the softness that Barnes wasn't a big fan of. But I look at the schedule ahead. I mean, you look at Arkansas. Then you got Florida, who's I think 6th in the country. Then you go to Texas. So it's about to get started. Be thankful for the Norfolk sake. Because it's not going to be close.
No.
But it's about to get picking up.
Just have another open date. I'm cool. Just leave it open. You don't need Norfolk State. Danny White's over there going, no, we need money. All right. Gentlemen, how are they going to react to Jonas Adu? Who gets more booed, Adu or Calipari?
You would think Boo Carter's being introduced on the court is coming back for his sophomore season. I think the way that fans are going to react.
I say it's going to be Calipari just because of the way the crowd goes, but Adu will get his fair share.
I think it'll be Adu.
Yeah.
Because right now we're so slighted with this NIL and the football players leaving, like the hatred of guys that are leaving. I think when Adu gets announced, I think it'll be
maybe every time he touches the ball.
It'll be interesting to see that post-game handshake between, or if there's any kind of pre-game interaction between Barnes and Adu. You know, when they're walking through the handshake line at the end, what'll that be? Will it be a big hug, or will it be a punch to the face? All right, I'll guess with that one it'll be a big hug. Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate it. When we come back, let's take a look at Tennessee's passing offense this past year. We're going to compare it to the Hendon Hooker years, the Joe Milton years. Boy, there are interesting stats in all different directions here. It's stuff you can tell your friends at work tomorrow. So stay tuned right here on the Sports Source. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Isn't it about time you caught up with your neighbors? Almost everyone now believes in home automation. Lights, climate control, door locks, sound systems, all controlled by your smartphone or tablet. Safety Systems has been doing home automation since before it was cool, before it was a trend. Trust them to do it right. Safety Systems. Call VFL JJ Surlis and his team this week. Okay, dug around for some stats. We'll call this CSI Sports Source. I had the cadaver of the 2024 season. I was cutting it open. I wanted to get into the passing stuff first, and didn't know what I was going to find. Just wanted to do some math and see what we got, if there's any trends we could spot that would be interesting. And there were. And I'll start with a big picture one. All right, so let's go ahead and put the first one up here. What you got here is the number of Tennessee passing yards versus SEC teams by year. So it just kept it in the conference, took the non-conference out of it. 2021's over on the far right, so 2024, this past year's on the left. But the average in the SEC, it went from the first year, 257 yards per game, to 297 in the 2022 year, that great year, down to 248 under Joe Milton, to 205 last year. The yellow are the games where you went over 250, 4 in 2021, 4 in 2022, 4 in 2023. Just did it against Kentucky and Vanderbilt this year. Thoughts on the disappearance? I mean, losing 50 yards a game in passing, that's quite a dip. And you've lost 100 yards from 2022 to 2024.
I think Nico he's not there yet, right? Like, clearly. And so I think that's part of it. I also think that Kevin Simon's been on our show a lot. You have him on with your show on Saturdays. And he mentioned after the Oklahoma game, he said the Tennessee house is on fire. And Brent Venables showed everyone how you defend Tennessee's passing game. So they have to make an adjustment to be able to put that fire out. And I don't know that Tennessee made a lot of adjustments to put the fire out at the end of the day. And so I think maybe Venables showed how you break it, and Tennessee has to adjust to what teams are doing right now.
Well, and what he did was that 3-3-5 stuff, which Missouri had actually done a little bit of the year before. But yeah, that's I'm not going to put it all on Nico though. And we got some other numbers here that are coming on the receivers, but the passing game, it's not the same. Is what I mean. It's just anybody who watches it knows it's not the same.
You could make a little bit of an explanation for this year that, okay, you weren't ready with Nico because he was inexperienced.
Yeah, first year
A lot
starter.
of different reasons. And you were able to lean on your running game more. So maybe part of it was a conscious choice that, okay, we're not quite here. We're not going to force the issue. So we are going to go with Dylan Sampson because we do have something here. I think that is the sunshine version of this.
The Sterling Hinton version.
Yes, I'm playing Sterling
So
Hinton
where's the
right
rank
now.
count club version of this? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me go to the next one, and we'll get these two guys in as well. All right, the last 4 quarterbacks throwing for targets of 20 yards or deeper. All right, so 20 and Hendon Hooker, his first year, completed 37 passes, 37% of the passes over 20 yards, 44% in 2022. With Milton, it dropped to 29%. It climbed back to 32% with Nico this year. So actually better than Milton last year in terms of hitting on those, but the touchdowns weren't there. You went from double digits to bigger, but in terms of the number of attempts over 20 yards, it was very similar to Hendon Hooker's first year. 50 this year, 53 Hooker his first year. And what you'll see in some of these stats is Nico's first year, similar to Hendon Hooker's first year in a lot of these areas, which I think for people who are out there freaking out, that may be a sign that, okay, calm down, kid will be okay. We'll see. Thoughts on throwing it deep, success rate, whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, the first thing that stood out was the lack of attempts. So he was closer to Hendon in year 1, but Hendon didn't start the whole season either. He would have had more attempts
If he
down
played
the
those
field.
first 2 games, yeah.
So they need more shots. I do come back to wide receiver play and the weapons. I don't think we're close this year to what they had in 21 and 22. Cedric Tillman was terrific in 2021. We know what Jalen Hyatt did the following year. Even Javonte Payton was terrific in his role as a deep threat. So Nico has to improve. I would bet on him improving and his numbers looking better next year than this past season if the help around him. I also think there was a lack of pass protection on the edge this year that greatly affected
Especially
what
that right
Nico
edge.
could do, maybe what Josh Heupel trusted them to be able to call at times too.
Guys, I look at it and I think that 2-by-2 formation wide, I think it's lost some of its luster. I mean, you no longer have that switch release that one season had 15 touchdowns, and Jalen Hyatt had 11 of them, 5 against Alabama. You no longer have that. I mean, if you're doing the wide receiver screen, that doesn't seem to get you anything. So you don't have like any motion. You don't have any. You don't do any shifts.
Yeah.
Well,
you
you
just
don't
line
run
up.
it as fast as you used
That's-
to.
that's-
And
also
with
in
no tempo, then what have you
Yeah.
got?
You already did the producer thing. You went straight into the next deal, and that is the screen passes. You saw the deep balls. I wanted to see Yak. I thought, where's a good example of this? So I looked at throws behind the line of scrimmage. Let's take a look at these numbers.
boy.
All right. Go back to Hendon Hooker's first year. Passes behind the line of scrimmage, there were 54 of them, almost identical to Nico. 9 yards per completion. His second year, it was down to 6, but they didn't try as many. Only 38 of those screen-type passes or flips to the running back. 7 yards per catch for Milton, less than 5 yards per catch on those screens and flips last year. To me, that screams you don't have receivers who are special.
Right.
And that's your Boo Carter stat. There's how you use Boo Carter. Line him up right down the line of scrimmage, throw him the ball, and see if he can make somebody miss. Because last year you had no one that could make anyone miss.
Well, I also noticed this year, too, that you had a lot of defenses walking up closer. You had a lot more, I don't want to say it was all press coverage, but they were walking up closer. When they do that, those plays aren't going to work as well unless you get, really good blocks from the other guy that's out there. So that also goes into a lack of respect for your receivers. Hey, we don't have to play 8 yards off the ball because this guy can't run by me.
There's also different types of receivers, right? Like Tennessee
Should be.
Cedric Tillman was not a guy, you threw the ball up to him and let him make a play. You did not throw him the screen. Tennessee had Brew, and just a lot, like Squirrel was hurt for a lot of it. Thornton didn't do a whole lot in those plays, but Brew is not a guy you throw the wide receiver
You
screen.
didn't have Velus Jones kind of a.
You don't have that. So I think Mike Matthews is that kind of player where Cedric Tillman, you throw the ball to him if he's in single coverage. Brazel's that guy. Throw the ball to him in single coverage and let him make a play. But he's not going to make a bunch of dudes miss. That's not what he is.
On the ground.
Yeah, I don't know about Brazel being the guy.
That's when he was in Tulane.
In terms of Pro Football Focus, he had 6 drops last year.
Yeah.
Which is 3 times as many as anybody else on the team. I've never seen anyone with 6 drops.
So maybe is Tennessee recruiting the wrong type of wide receiver to the things they need to do,
or not coaching them and getting them to do what they need them to do? Yeah, maybe getting the wrong type. Either way, I don't trust them to identify a wide receiver and properly develop them at this point. They developed, Tillman and Hyatt developed, but they didn't find those guys. So, okay, when we come back, let's continue this deep dive into the 2024 offense. More interesting stuff on the quarterbacks. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. The segment brought to you by Games and Things. Christmas has come and gone, and maybe you didn't get that gift that you really wanted. Well, then now's the time to get it for yourself. Games and Things can make your home the entertainment envy of your neighborhood. Card tables, pool tables, arcade games, Bluetooth jukeboxes, bars, bar stools, you name it, they got it. Games and Things, because life should be fun. All right, take a look at this number. We got a bunch of numbers here, so we're going to talk under this and leave it up there so people can look at it. Just comparing these last 4 starting quarterbacks over a number of different percentages. The first one. This is why I'm down on your receivers, folks. According to Pro Football Focus, the percentage of on-target passes that were dropped. For Hendon Hooker, it was 9%. For Hendon Hooker the second year, 9%. For Joe Milton, 10%. For Nico Iamaleava this past year, 16%. 16% of your on-target passes wound up on the grass field.
Goodness.
That is abysmal. We will get back to that. Screen attempts, Hendon Hooker attempted 77 his first year, 57 his second year. Look at Joe Milton, 105 screen attempts with Joe Milton. Then it dropped to 63 with Nico, and the screen yards dropped. And that also goes back to the terrible yak yardage when you were throwing behind the line of scrimmage we showed you in the last segment. Play action versus non-play action, more play action than ever with Nico, more than you've ever run, more than 200. Which is a total flip from last year with Joe Milton, who was the only guy on that list that ran more non-play action than play action passes. And then finally, the percentage of dropbacks where the quarterback is responsible for pressure, at least some of the pressure. So for all the people like, holds the ball too long, well, every game they show you the view from behind the quarterback that nobody's open. So that kind of leads you to hold the ball too long. But he is at 15.5%. Basically right where Hendon Hooker was the first year he ran it. So I'm a little tired of hearing Nico holds it too long. Yeah, he's a first-year starting quarterback. Hendon Hooker held it just as long his first year. And again, when they continue to show you the behind-the-quarterback angle, and the announcers continue to say, look, there's nobody open, you can't keep saying, yeah, but he held it too long. Who do you want him to throw it to? Throw it to the covered guy. Yeah, just throw it in the floor every time. So anyway, the one that stood out to me, though, 16% drops.
Yeah.
Your on-target passes, 16% of them are dropped.
That's insane.
That's horrible.
That's 1 in 6, right?
Yeah.
If you have that, and then what percentage for some of
math.
your overthrows? You mix in a drop with a pass that's overthrown, and then what's that going to be? Like 30%
We can't keep the
of your
focus on the
attempts?
receivers. We've got to get back to Nico.
No, but it does.
And see, you look at the number of drops, and you look at the yards after the catch, which was minimal.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you've got to sit there and point your fingers at your now exiting through the portal receiver corps. So you asked earlier in the show, are you concerned about the lack of talent? Are you concerned about the guys going into the portal? I think it's kind of it's a double-edged sword. You're losing guys, so you don't have them. But the guys you're losing, okay, they look imminently replaceable.
Yeah. Whoever's punching right now, we got multiple directors training, so whoever's punching right now, don't know if you can do it. Can you get back to a full screen that we used in the previous segment? The one, and you can have Paul off camera here tell me yay or nay. Can we get back to the full screen that says 20 plus yards? Paul, can they do that or no? Need a quick answer. Yay or nay? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs down. No, can't do it. All right, forget it. Well, the percentages, we'll have to go back and look. I didn't remember his percentage on those deep balls being far worse than some of those other guys. So the difference to me is the drop percentage far worse than the other guys.
Yeah.
5% worse than
That's
the
an
other guys. So
insane
to me,
number.
that's what, if you want to know where your offense stagnated, you had a first-year starting quarterback who needs to grow up. But his numbers kind of look like Hendon Hooker in his first year in the system. What's different is they can't gain any yardage. 5 yards per catch less behind this line of scrimmage. So they're not making any plays for you out there. And they drop 15% of the passes. To me, that's where your offense really slowed down. In addition to the coaches didn't do anything new or different. If anything, they got more, they pull things more back in, it seemed to me. All right. When we come back, people get mad when a season ends. They're mad. You lost in the Elite Eight. You lost in the playoff. Fair enough. But 2024 was about as good of a year as any athletic department is ever going to have. Let's talk about just a spectacular football, basketball, baseball, all sports season at Tennessee for 2024. Come on back. Welcome back. Oh, that's an interesting graphic. elchico.com, location, Knoxville. Yes, it is. I think we got a mistake there somehow, but anyway, it is located in Knoxville. It's located right off Merchants Drive. And folks, there are a lot of good Mexican restaurants in town. There are. Most of them serve the same dishes, meaning the plates are laid out the same, the food is prepared the same, and it all tastes the same. As a matter of fact, I could do the blind taste test and you won't know which one you're at. You will if you go to El Chico because it's authentic Tex-Mex food and flavors. Put it this way. When you do Mexican, look at the plate and say, oh, wow, that does look like the plate at this place and that place. Go to El Chico. It's different. It's better. Tex-Mex, authentic. El Chico. Location, Knoxville. elchico.com. All right. No fans are happy when a season ends. They don't like losing the Elite Eight. They don't like losing the college football playoff, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, you look big picture. I'm not sure you'll ever top the across-the-board success that Danny White's athletic department had in 2024. 10 wins and a third-place finish and a 16-team SEC plus a playoff berth in football. SEC championship and Elite Eight run in college basketball. National championship in baseball. Third straight all-sports trophy. The men's and women's basketball teams have started this season a combined 23-0. And I believe last year that every Tennessee team reached NCAA postseason play. Is that correct, or did I dream that? I think that's right.
No, that sounds right.
I think they press released that one.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, that's the only one I'm wrong about. And it's very rare. It's somebody else's fault.
I'll take the
It's just a ridiculous year of success, Chuck. And being the super fan, I will let you open this segment. We got about 2 minutes here for everybody to dance around, but I don't know that you can really top this. I know football's king. If you win a national title, okay. But in terms of wall-to-wall success.
Oh, I know. And it makes me think, a few weeks ago, John, I had a doctor's appointment, and the doctor pulled me aside, and he said, you realize this is the golden era of Tennessee sports. And he rattled off a lot of just like what you said. And he said, the only problem is I don't know how many fans really realize that. And there's something to that, of all of the success. Even after the loss to Ohio State, we need somebody that's going to win 9 or 10 games. Says, every year. This isn't, and I'm thinking, you got that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'm hearing they're not going to take 9 or 10. Yeah.
I know. I know.
It's hard to realize you're in the good old days while you're in the good old days.
And these are the
right?
good old days.
These are the good old days right now.
Especially
Well,
if
I
you
also
just
think
wander
your
through the
Your
wilderness.
mood is what happened last. Right now, people are down
Bingo.
because you got drilled by Ohio State, and you don't think back to the baseball national championship or the Elite Eight that you'd only been to one time before. So whatever happens last affects your mood, and you're going out into the saying goodbye to 2024 feeling bad when, you should be sitting there looking, like Chuck said, like your doctor said.
Keep it up.
The golden years.
There are no dead periods for the fan base. You always have something to look forward to get excited about. It may not end in the championship, but they're competitive 12 months out of the year. I guess July
Yes.
they take the break. You can transition from baseball postseason immediately into the excitement of football.
This current administration, with Danny White and up, President and Chancellor, you haven't seen anything like this in 20 years. It's unbelievable that they're all firing on the same.
The support across the board, I think, helps the fans get excited about what's happening when they see that happening at Tennessee.
Okay. See you guys next week. Thank you for watching our show. See you then.